Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hoops Crew, Wednesday edition of the Hoops Crew. It's going to be a little bit different today. Welcome to all our Patreon supporters, members. If you are watching this live, this is exclusively live for our Patreon supporters. I'll turn that music down just a little bit. So, yes, thank you for joining us. My name is Ben. I'll be your host today. I'm joined in the virtual studio by Mr. Jake Botel.
Thanks for having me. What an intro. That's got me grooving on a Wednesday morning.
Bit of grooving. Can't hurt. But most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you for giving up some of your time today to join us to talk about all things the Geelong Football Club and a little bit of other AFL, if we can squeeze a little bit in as well. So on today's show, we're going to talk about some AFL finals debutants at the footy club. There's about 6 of them by my count. I nearly had Tanner Brood in there, but I did realise he played a game for GWS. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the biggest news stories of the week. We haven't forgotten about Wednesday News Wrap. We'll still cover that. We'll talk about a player focus. There's a certain Geelong player that's playing his 100th game this weekend. And we also want to talk about the rivalry between Port Adelaide and Geelong over the years, especially in finals. So, Jake, are you ready to go? Are you fired up, Jake?
I was born ready. I am fired up. I am all fired up. Yes, absolutely. Launch us into the show.
Let's do it. All right. So, as I said off the top, we've got 6 Cats. Here they are. 6 Cats ready to make their AFL debut in 2024. And they are Sean Manor, Ollie Henry, Ollie Dempsey, Lawson Humphries, Shannon Neal, and Jack Bowes. Now, Jake, assuming they all get picked this week, it's going to be an exciting time for almost a quarter of this list, a quarter of this team, if they get named as they are, that hasn't played a final yet. How does that make you feel, Jake, going into this Thursday night?
Oh, my goodness. It makes me excited going into this Thursday night. It gets me excited going into the next, say, 3-4 weeks. It gets me excited headed into 2025 and beyond. Like, there was so much, I'm not even going to say doom and gloom, but it seemed like a pretty practical point of view to take that after that 2022 flag, it was, that one last push. We've got Selwood the flag as captain. It felt like such a capper on an era for the Cats. But I feel like, after a little bit of a reset year, a little bit of a slide off in 2023, we're sort of looking to be back, and I'm not going to say better than ever, but we are back and building something new. It doesn't seem like the hunger has disappeared from this team, from this coach, from this club, and I love that as a fan. And I love the mix. That's something that stands out to me, Ben. Like, these AFL debutants, you've got young guys, you've also got mature age guys. My dog's even excited about this. He's just over the moon about the Cats debutants. Like Lawson Humphries and Sean Manor obviously sort of stand out as guys who have made their AFL debut this year, and they're going to make their finals debut. Like, what a start to your career.
Did you even think for a minute that you would see Lawson Humphries be playing in a final? We'll start with him. Let's dig into Lawson a little bit. Debuted, was it 8 or 9 weeks ago, something like that. Now we were all calling for him to get a game for quite a while. We liked what we saw in the VFL, and then since he's come into this team, he's been magnificent. And you thought a couple of games in, I'm thinking, geez, he's probably going to hold his spot for a few weeks here, and then a couple more games go by, I think, I don't reckon they can get rid of him. And then a few more games goes by. I'm like, I reckon he's the best kick in the team. I'm like, yeah, he is guaranteed to play finals. The question is, Jake, how's he going to go under the bright lights in September? Do you think we're going to see a bit of nerves creep in, or he's just the coolest, calmest customer you've ever seen, and he's built for this stage?
Well, it depends. I suppose you can never fully forecast. Like, finals is just such a different cauldron. For want of a better word. I mean, that's such a cliche, the cliche cauldron, but you can sort of only go on, what we've seen, data set, track record. And if you look at him in VFL, I mean, this is a guy who played 11 VFL games for the Cats this year. He only failed to clear 20 or more disposals twice. one of the biggest games that Geelong had, one of the toughest, closest games that he played in, was against the Sydney Swans in round 10 of the VFL season. That to me was the game that got him selected. He had career high 28 disposals. He had almost a career high in marks. He had 8. He had 3 tackles. He kicked basically the match sealing goal. And when the game was on the line, the Swans had roared back into the contest and looked like they might even snatch it away from the Cats. This was, I think, the curtain raiser. It was up at the SCG. And he provided a crucial one-on-one spoil down back. The Swans were pressing, and it was him one-on-one, basically near the goal square, and he got over the top of his opponent, fisted it through for a behind, I believe it was. I think it's literally 90 seconds later, he bobs up running through the paint of 50 and slots the match winner. So I think you go back to the game against the Crows where he slots the match winner. I don't think the moment will be too big for him. I think we've seen some evidence that Lawson Humphreys isn't that 18-year-old debutant. He is in his early 20s. He's played a bit of footy. He's seen, 3 years more life experience than some of the younger guys. So I don't think it'll be too big for him.
I agree. I think we're going to see another special game from the young fella. I want to talk a little bit about Ollie Dempsey, though, the Rising Star winner, and we'll come to him again in a little bit. I don't know, but this is one that I'm a little bit more nervous about, Jake. I think Ollie's got what it takes to have a big game, but I feel it depends on how this game plays out. I feel like there's certain games, certain ways that Geelong play, or certain opponents that let us play a brand of footy that we want to play. And sometimes that works for Ollie and sometimes it doesn't. And my question still remains for him is, can he inject himself into this game when the chips aren't rolling his way, or whatever the phrase is? Can he find a way to have an influence on this game? I think if he can be that X factor for us, and we've got a couple of X factors, we'll talk about another one in a minute, but I think Ollie, he can be that guy that will win us this game, or he could be the guy on Thursday night at the end of the game. We go, oh, where was he? Well, what happened to him? The Rising Star winner. What happened to him? I don't know. What are your thoughts on him? Because clearly he's been in the news all week. It's all been hyping up Ollie Dempsey. Everybody knows who he is now. Are you feeling good about his chances of dominating, or do you feel like it's going to be a big test for him? Where do you see him? Where do you see his game going on Thursday night?
Probably was one of his quieter games the last time we played Port Adelaide. 13 disposals, 1 goal, 1 tackle. So, look, I think with Ollie Dempsey is he's growing in confidence. I think this has been a really good year for him. Obviously, not exactly like Lawson Humphreys, but in the sense that, he debuted back in 2022. He played a few games in 2023. And now he's been undroppable all season. I think in some ways it's not, I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head. It's not so much the stage, it's how the game unfolds. And, Ollie Dempsey is, he is more of that outside player. That's ideally where you would like to see him, operating in space, doing clever things. So I think we'll see the best of Ollie Dempsey if our contested situation around clearances is at its best, because then we can win the ball and get it out to our users like himself and Brian Myers and others who are on the outside. So I think his game might be a little bit more dictated by how others perform. That's sort of how I would frame his potential outcome.
Interesting. I did a poll on Twitter last night. I said, which AFL finals debutant for the Cats will have the biggest impact on Thursday night? And 38%, the most said Ollie Dempsey. The second most was Shawnee Manor. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes, if we can, just talking about Shawnee Manor. For me, I think he's the biggest X factor going into this game, Jake. I think he's the man that we all should be watching. A lot of us saw that VFL grand final, was it last year, how he absolutely dominated, 20-odd, 30 touches, whatever he had, and 6 goals. I feel like he's got it in him to have a massive game, to be a massive influence. Now, whether it gets us over the line, I'm not completely sure, but I feel like he's ready to go, and I can't wait to see what he produces. I didn't think he would stay in the side after he got dropped early in the year and then came back. I thought he'd be in and out a little bit and just be that top-up player. But for me, he's the one that gets me excited the most. What about you? What do you think of his game?
Oh, he went back and worked at what I think we all thought he needed to work at, which was to basically buy into the Geelong way of it's we, not me. That's not to be too critical of him, but I watched the first few games he played down at the Cats, the game against St Kilda. I think we went to the Crows the next week. There were a few times where he probably took shots where other players, your Tyson Stengels, for instance, would center the ball to a teammate. They're looking to bring a teammate in a better scoring position. And I think he probably didn't do that, probably didn't bring enough defensive pressure. He drops down to the VFL and pretty much proceeds to turn his season around. The first game back against Northern Bull Ants, 3 goals, 2. That was one where I still felt he's still ironing out some of those kinks. He's still ironing out I've got to be Superman and kick all the goals and have all the disposals. He really improved over the course of the sort of 7-8 games he played in the VFL. Still kicked plenty of goals, but set up a lot as well. Applied some really good pressure. And really, it all came to a head for him against Sandringham. 21 disposals, had, I think, 10 clearances or 6 clearances, 10 tackles and touched on ground, but an incredible team player. Straight back into the AFL side, hasn't been dropped since. So I totally agree with you. I voted for him as that sort of X Factor finals player in your poll on Twitter. I think he's a gem.
I can't wait to see what he produces on Thursday. I'm so excited. I just really feel like we're going to be all raving. All the talk on Thursday night after the game is going to be all about Sean Manor, and we're going to be so much. If you don't already love the bloke, I think we're just going to be out of control. All right, Jake, with that out of the way, let's talk about the next. Let's do some news wrap. Let's just wrap the news for the week. There's a few stories going on, quite a few Geelong stories at the moment, Jake. But I want to start talking about Stevie J. Now, I don't know if you heard, Jake, but Stevie J has been chosen to present the Norm Smith Medal in the grand final to probably Lawson Humphries. Let's just say it right now. Lawson Humphries will be that man, that Stevie J. A good honour for Stevie. Clearly the Norm Smith medalist from 2007. I'm happy for him. And we probably should also mention Fred Wooler, 1963 Premiership captain, will be presenting a new medal, the Ron Barassi medal, to the winning Premiership captain on the day as well. I want to ask you about that first, the Fred Wooler one, and then circle back around to Stevie J. What do you think about the medal for Premiership captains?
Well, I wish Joel Selwood was still playing to get it. He should have had that on Grand Final Day 2022. We can't be too greedy. Look, I'm here nor there on extra awards. I think I'm fine with it. I'm not one of those people that's like, what do we need? More participation trophies? I think it's fantastic. Like, you're honoring. It's a big achievement. I think captains do play a big role at clubs. I know that might sound like an obvious sort of low IQ take, but I think they do. I think it's a big spotlight kind of role. You only have to look across the full range of AFL clubs to see what different captains have to deal with in a season. Like, think about being North Melbourne's captain right now, the last few years. Think about being West Coast's captain. Think about being Melbourne's captain, what Max Gawn, deals with on a week in, week out basis when the stories aren't even about him. And you're trying to hold it together, both on and off the field. I think it's good. I think it's a nice honour on Grand Final Day to say, well done. You've stepped into, a massive leadership role for your team. And let's face it, there's a lot of captains that contribute massively, not just off the field, but on the field. You go back to some of those players. Max Gawn, probably the best player Melbourne has. I know other people might argue with that, but I think he's the best player on the Demons. So, no, I like it.
I think, you mentioned you should have given them to the Joel Selwood back in the day, but maybe they can do retrospective premiership medals for the captains. Maybe that's a possibility. Back to Stevie J, the Norm Smith medal. I think it's great for him to have that opportunity to get some recognition for him. He's a lot of these players from 20 years ago, they quickly get forgotten about, and it's nice. I like the fact that the AFL finds a way to celebrate some of these older players. Well, they're not even really that old, but as soon as you're out of the game, a couple of years out of the game, everyone's already forgotten about you. You just have to look at game footage from 3 or 4 years ago and like, oh yeah, I forgot about that player, because lists turn over so much in a 4-year period. It's quick. It's before you know it, it's all done. I was watching footage of Paul Chapman the other day because they had the Cats website was showing highlights from the 2013 I think it was a semi-final against Port Adelaide, and seeing Chappie, just an absolute peak Chappie. You forgot how good. I forgot how good he was, Jake. Look, good for Stevie J. Any thoughts on Stevie J before we move on to the next news story?
I mean, it's funny sometimes those highlights packages pop up, on YouTube or on Twitter, of those eras. And Stevie J, you mentioned Paul Chapman earlier. Like, what a team we had, and it's incredible to think how the Geelong's continued to rebuild and relaunch. Like, you look back at the retirement lists season by season, you're like, how did we lose all those players? And yet it was like, oh, a bit of a down year. We went out in straight sets in the finals, like after finishing 4th or whatever. It's like, what? No, what club survives the loss of such champions? Stevie J has been very successful in his role up at Yarrawonga as the coach. I was just having a look. 31 wins, 3 losses in home and away play the last 2 seasons. They're just about to start finals this year. The Pigeons are on top of the ladder, 17-1 this year and looking to go back to back. I know he's called time on his Yarrawonga coaching career. I think he's returning down Geelong somewhere. But no, I love it. I love to see Stevie J out there. He's the quintessential, player for the big stage. He never looked, he wanted to be there. He wanted the ball on the biggest day, and you can't say that about everybody.
No, let's hope if he comes back to Geelong, and if he's already here, let's hope he maybe does an assistant coaching role at the club next year. We can only hope, Jake. But let's move on to the All-Australian Awards that were a few days ago now. But Ollie Dempsey, as we said earlier, the Rising Star winner. He made a little funny joke on the night, which was quite good, about Jezza saying you should thank the tribunal. Harley Reid and Sam Darcy got suspended. But no, look, he's had a great year, hasn't he, Jake? He's been terrific. I've been really impressed with the way he's gone about it. As I said, I didn't rate him at the start of the year as I thought he'd get more games, but I didn't think he'd become the player he's become this year. If all things were maybe equal, maybe he wouldn't have won the Rising Star, but that's the rule as it is. Regardless of that, he's still the third best young player going around at the moment. I don't want to hear the talk about he's a 21-year-old, it's his third year, all that sort of stuff. If you want an award for a first-year player, then make an award for a first-year player. I believe there are other awards out there. Pardon me. But no, I'm really happy for the guy. I think it's fantastic that he got the recognition, and he's a bit of a name now. So hopefully he'll take that. Hopefully the confidence he gets from that he'll use on the weekend. But the other one, Jake, was Jezza. Jezza, how many now? Is that now 4 for Jezza or 5? I'm not sure how many All-Australians it is for him now. But he was fun. I was watching him on the night when they were interviewing players behind him, Jake, and he was like sort of ducking down, and all the players were doing this. Was quite humorous, really. They didn't want to get their heads on the shot. But Jezza just, I don't know, something about that man. He just makes me laugh. Just looking at him, he's not even trying to be funny half the time. He just cracks me up. Thoughts on Jezza?
We were laughing watching. Yeah, we were laughing watching the game, I think, against West Coast, and saying Jeremy Cameron always looks like he's just rolled out of bed. Like the hair, if you look when when he's lining up for that first shot at goal. Maybe it's just the early afternoon kickoffs down at Cardinia Park, but it's always there's a few strands sticking up at odd angles. Sort of like Bert and Ernie hair. It's just sort of tufting out at different sort of angles and spots. I just love his whole approach. I mean, it's such a relaxed, casual, laconic. Laconic is an overused word, but I think it's perfect for Jezza. I think it sums him up. He just does have this very easy style. And look, fully deserving, I think. I know there'll probably be arguments. Everyone argues for the players from their club. But I thought in some ways, people might point to his goal tally or whatever, or that, that came in certain games where he kicked big bags against, sort of weaker teams. I think most forwards do that, to be honest. But the other thing that we shouldn't underrate is the fact that he has played such a team first role this season. I fully believe if you rolled Jeremy Cameron, just around the forward 50 for all of his time on ground, he would kick for 3 or 4 goals a game on average. And he has done things for the team this year. He's played up on a wing. I'm sure there's been games where we've seen him line up at some, in that center square. I'm sure we've seen him float back and take intercept marks. Like, he has provided something all around the ground from us. It's a selfless offering from a player that I think he's one of the few players that could still kick 100 in the modern game if you just played him up forward for a full season.
I think he could if the game, if we had we're not built that way, this football club. We're trying to we've got a bunch of small forwards and all that. But yeah, you're right. I think he could easily, if not 100, then at least 80 goals. You could see that happening for sure. All right. Easily. So some other stories coming out of the Cats through the week is Tom Hawkins, Jake, possibly coming back through the VFL. Now, I want to just touch on this for a little moment, if you'll indulge me.
Please.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea. That give Tom a bit of a run. Tom Hawkins and Cam Guthrie. I don't know if Cam will get up, but yeah, I think Tom's ready to go, and it's now or never. You got to pull that cord on Tom. Why wait? If he's not right, he's not right. But you'll never know really, and it's too late. You've got to get some games out of that big fella. He's been off his feet for the longest time now, so I think it'll be exciting. It'll be a home game in Geelong. I don't know if we'll get 40,000 there, but you'd think you'd get a little bit more than the average VFL game. Even it's a final as well, so an elimination or semi-final, instant knockout. Tom Hawkins is back, ready to kick 14 goals at Kinnedia Park, possibly, maybe not. But maybe he'll play a little bit of a half a footy or 3/4 and absolutely dominate. Now, he probably won't. Look, he won't dominate because the ball use won't be as great, and he'll just be finding his touch a little bit. But I think the thing for me, Jake, is how does he, if he gets through this one, and the Cats have a win against Port Adelaide, that means the senior team doesn't play for a couple of weeks. Does Tommy play in the VFL again the week after in a prelim for the VFL? And then the Cats have won the senior team's won a qualifying final. Are you going to change the winning formula? I don't know, Jake. If you do that, I feel like, yeah, it's a tough one. I think if we lose that first final, and we somehow win this semi-final in the VFL, I think maybe that's where Tommy gets a look. But geez, I don't know if I'd want to change the team if we beat Port Adelaide on Thursday night. What would you do if you were Chris Scott or the coaching selection committee in this situation with those scenarios that are facing us at the moment?
I think that it's very smart to play him in this VFL game because I think you're going to get a really good evaluation, right? So let's go with the scenario that you've laid out. We somehow win the qualifying final on Thursday, which I think is a very real possibility. I don't tend to think we're going to get hammered by 60 points. I think the Cats are very professional, and Chris Scott with 2 weeks to prepare for one team. I think that you play him this week and you go, if he gets through, perfect. We've got the bye through in the AFL game. I would play him the next week in the VFL, in the prelim. Because basically what I'm looking for, if I'm the coach, I want to see, is he moving freely? Yes, he's fit enough to get out there and run, but what I'm looking for, it's not even so much goals or a particular statistical output. It's, does he look like he's moving freely? Does he get through the game without trouble, without pulling up too sore, without re-injuring? And then the next week, you've got a second chance to say, okay, he made it through one game. Let's see how he goes here. Is he actually fit? Because you cannot, under any circumstance, play a player in an AFL final that isn't right to go. Look at what happened with Sydney and the Swans when they went into that 2022 grand final.
Yes.
I just think you can't risk it. So yeah, I would play him this week. I'd play him next week as well. And if he gets through, bully to him. He can, and I would play him if he got through and looked good. And you're like, that looks like Tom Hawkins has had half a season off and he's looking fit, firing, and free in his movement. I would put him back in. I mean, he's a 3-time premiership player, and I think he's played pivotal roles in grand finals before. If he looks healthy through 2 VFL games and ready to impact, I would find a spot in there for him.
Interesting. Good comments, Jake. Just to round out a bit of the news stories of the week. It's been spoken that Sam De Conning is likely to come back in, but not quite sure where he fits in. Does he go down back, or is he in the ruck again? What does that mean for Reece Stanley? All that stuff. Probably the biggest story of the week, Jake, we haven't touched on it yet, is the hair is back. Cam Guthrie's hair has returned. Look at it. Look at that shining beast on top of his head there. It's glowing. The magic has returned, so I can't wait. Will we see him again? I'm not so sure. Hopefully we'll see him in the VFL this weekend. I'm going to try to get there for the second half or at least half the game. I'm not sure when I'll get there, but I've got a few things on in the morning. It's an 11:35 start, that one at GMHBA, but that's great. The VFL team, as we said, did have a bit of a loss, which was a shame, Jake. But Werriby's a pretty good unit, so hopefully we'll do a lot better against Southport on the weekend. And the AFLW side, I'm sure you'll. Have you done your recap? You have done your recap for that one already, haven't you? That's on the channel already.
Yeah, out yesterday.
Check that one out, and you've got a preview dropping, or has that dropped already as well? So I'm all across it at the moment.
No, not yet. We've got so many episodes this week. No, dropping probably Friday. I think they don't play till Sunday, so I think we're going to do it probably Friday night, I think.
Beautiful. Shout out to Amy McDonald, Kate Sermon, and Michaela Bowen on 50 games for the club, and another shout out to one of your favourites, Jake, a new favourites, Kate Kenny on a debut, Irish lass debuting for the Cats on the weekend as well.
Debut
Jake,
and a goal. A goal on debut.
Debut and a goal. Now, Jake, I just want to I don't normally do this on Patreon, but I'm trying to get used to doing this. So I do want to give a shout out to our new network sponsor. It's very freshly minted, our new network sponsor, Cyril Cook, florist. So I want to thank them for their support of this channel, but also support they've come on at the start of the AFLW season. They're a big supporter of us and all we're doing in the AFLW space, and I shouldn't take much credit for this. It's mostly you and the chaps that are doing most of the work in that space, but I do want to send a heartfelt thank you to Cyril Cook for sponsoring us for the end of this and for the AFLW season and the end of the men's season and into 2025 as well. So we're all here at the Hoops Crew. We're all excited about that. Let me also, Jake, take a moment, if you don't mind, and thank all the Patreon supporters. And they are Lara, Sarah, Luke, Kevin, Stephen, Kiri, Duncan, Edward, Rachel, Matthew, Sam, Phil, Denzel, Jackie, Joey, Gad, Gerald, Jared, Joey, Josiah, Chad, Kieran, Jody, Liam, Steve, Jared, Morris, Cat in Space, and Ali. And Jay, guess what? I'm really going to struggle if we start adding some more names to this. I don't know how we're going to get through it. But a massive shout out to Lara, who's just joined up in the last couple of days. So thank you for joining up. I believe Lara has been with us before as well. So Lara, if you're watching, thank you very much for there. And just finally, Jake, while we just are rounding out some shout outs to all the subscribers on YouTube. We've just ticked over 1,300. So I love it when we tick over another little 100 there. That's always great. And if you're following us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, we love you as well. So thanks for all your support, everyone. All right, with that out of the way, Jake, let us, Jake, get on to the next story. And this is, well, it's not a story. We've done the news bit now, but let's talk a little bit, if we can, about the big rivalry between Geelong and Port Adelaide. And I just want to take you through, Jake, a few of the games that we've played against them over the years. So let's go back. Some of the big finals games I'm talking about here. So the 2021 qualifying final, some of this is pretty hard to hear. Some of it's pretty great. But the 2021 qualifying final, Port Adelaide win that game by 43 points. This game will be forever remembered, at least for me, is the game that we kept kicking it to Aliir. I don't know what we were doing, but we just kept bombing it to him all the time. I think he took about 4 or 5 contested marks in that first quarter. I could not believe what I was seeing. It's like, guys, guys, what are you doing? Fantasia or Fantasia, whatever his name is, I'm not sure. He kicked 4 goals for Port. We were just never in it. I think they won every quarter. We were just comprehensively smashed. Didn't kick straight either, which didn't help. The 2020 qualifying final, Port Adelaide won that one by 16 points. We were horrible that day, Jake. 5 goals, 12. Could you believe? 5 goals, 12. Oh, if only we kicked a few more of those goals, who knows what would have happened. But doesn't matter. We still made the grand final that year, and we won't talk about Dustin Martin and what happened in that game. But let's go back to a bit more funner times, Jake. The 2013 semi-final, we touched on this earlier with Paul Chapman. We won that game by 16 points. We lost the 2020 one by 16, but we won this one by 16. Paul Chapman, absolutely dominant, kicked the first 2 goals of the game, ended up with 4. Absolutely glorious. The Cats looked like they were going to drop this one early. Port Adelaide, a young Port Adelaide at the time, came from nowhere really, and they looked amazing on the MCG. But Cats did what the Cats do and just found a way to get on top. And I think we got it out to nearly 5 goals towards the end, and then Port maybe got a couple of 8 late to sort of bring it back to 16 points. But Jake, the big one that we all love to reminisce and talk about and come back to and remind Port Adelaide supporters about was the 2007 grand final. How much did we win by again? I forget. 119 points, the greatest margin in AFL grand final history. Yes, Port Adelaide fans, until you beat us in a grand final, we're always going to remind you about that. Just in case you forget, you just need a little reminder every now and then. You beat us in a semi, whoop-de-doo. Come and see us in a grand final. So that was a great game. We spoke about earlier. That was Stevie J winning the Norm Smith. Terrific, that game. Cam Mooney kicked 5 goals, mind you. 5 goals as well, and pretty much every Geelong player just played the game of their life. It was not great for neutral fans, I should say, but fantastic regardless. And the 2004 preliminary final, a very young Cats team, Jake, and I want to ask you about this in a sec if your memory goes that far back, but 2004 qualifying final against Port Adelaide. They were top of the ladder that year. We lost that game by 55 points. Absolutely got smashed. A very young Geelong side that hadn't quite sort of become the side that they were going to become a few years later. But yeah, do you have any memories of way back in 24? I'm not sure how old you were back then, but does that ring any bells for you, that game? I think David Spriggs might have been playing that game from memory, if you remember that name.
Yeah, no, it definitely rings bells to me. That I was 14 in 2004. It was the first season that I really got into football. I watched the 2003 grand final the year before. I was sort of a latecomer to sport in general. So I watched 03 grand final, Brisbane and the Pies, really loved it. Couldn't wait for 04 to start. Followed the Cats because that's my family's team. So yeah, I watched a heap of footy in 2004. I remember watching that final against Port. Very clear that they were the far superior side. I mean, it was just 70-23 at halftime. That was the gap. But you know, I thought impressively, you know, we kicked 6 goals to their 7 in the second half, and sort of I thought you could see that there was something there for this Cats team. I mean, the fact that we would then go on after that, we went to a semi-final and beat Essendon. I remember watching that game at my grandma's place down in Geelong, beat them by 10 points, 74-64. And then we pushed Brisbane the following week in a prelim, lost by 9 points to that great Brisbane side, 84-75. So yeah, plenty of memories for me of that time. Stevie J kicked 2 goals, 2 in that game against Port. Kent Kingsley, 2 goals, 1. And Darren Milburn led the way with 26 disposals. So yeah, we were young and green, but there was something there, something building. Just took a few seasons to all come together.
Yeah, that game, it was devastating. I remember I was living in Hamilton at the time, not Hamilton, Canada, Hamilton, Victoria, and I was just getting back into footy. I started really taking it seriously in 2000, but the Cats were pretty much at the bottom. You know, they were rock bottom really after all those grand finals through the 90s and 1989. We were an up and coming side, and We got to that final. I thought, here we go. We're a top 4 team. I couldn't believe it. It was a great regular season, great home and away season. And the Cats, I was so excited to be back in the finals. Mate, I was so devastated at the end of that game. It rocked me. I did forget about the Essendon game the week after. I've sort of forgotten that one a little bit. You tend to remember the games you lose more than the games that you win. But yeah, the preliminary final against Brisbane a couple of weeks later. We had that game we had them on toast at one point, and then Riccardi, I think, missed a shot late, which would have put us real close, if not in front. I can't remember the exact scoring progression there, but I felt like we were just making a charge, and then we missed that, and then it went down the other end, and they got a goal. And yeah, well, as you said, we lost by 9 points. But that one hurt. The 2013 one was great, and I think all the talk after the 2013 semi-final was that Port Adelaide did well to get where they got to that year. And the 2007 grand final, Jake, as I said, the neutrals probably didn't like it, but I actually, and I don't normally cry, but yeah, that had me in tears at the end after the grand final. I was a sucking mess after that. I couldn't believe it's been 44 years since the Cats won a premiership. Mate, take me back real quickly as to your experience of that day against Port in the 2007 grand final.
Nervous wreck. I was such a nervous footy fan back then. And, it's because you've never experienced these things. I'd never watched my team in a grand final. I'd heard a lot about, Geelong's reputation in my family was, they're the chokers. They're not going to do anything, and you've seen it. Look, 2004, choked the prelim against Brisbane. 2005, choked it away against Sydney. 2006, won the NAB Cup, thought we were everything in a bit, and we missed the finals. And then 2007, it was just like all set up for this massive gut punch. But I was nervous, but I thought, geez, we are the best team by a mile in this competition. And it was just about, I felt like it was just about us doing it. And only really we could stop ourselves. And I think that was as it proved. I don't think, Port Adelaide could have had their all-time 22 on the park. They could have had an all AFL 22. I think we would have done them by 100 no matter what, because it was one of the most dominant seasons of footy I've ever watched from any side. If you go back and look at the average winning margin we had that season, and then even finals, I mean, we curb stomped North Melbourne in the qualifying final. They tried to run through our pack, and we turned around and said, well, here's a triple burger for you. Here's a 100-point loss. Get out. Go away, Glenn Archer. Shinbone this. And then survived a cauldron against Collingwood. That Gary Ablett, cometh the moment, cometh the man, the son of the man, snap around the body, still makes me tingle up. We were on the doorstep of something really special for a lot of years, and then it all unlocked, and it was like a massive shedding in 2007 when that final siren went. And you could see the realization of past players around the ground when they'd cut to them that was a curse that was broken. There was a curse there that we would always be chokers, that we would never make it. And to me, and I'm on a tangent here, Ben, but it's why 2009 stands for me as the most significant flag we won. Because 2008 could have been Hawthorn putting us back in that box of like, yeah, you thought you were out of it, but we're going to stuff you back in the locker and you're still chokers. So 2009, to rip that out of the Saints' guts and say, no thanks, we are not. I don't think we have the dynasty if it's not for 2009. And maybe 2007 gave us the belief to go back to the well again after 08. So I've just got great memories of that 2007 grand final. Just couldn't believe it. And it was just like more. Just give me more goals. It was glorious. Yeah.
A little bit of trivia, Jake. I'll give you the answer as well as the question. But did you know when Geelong kicked the first goal in that 2007 grand final? We kicked 24 goals for the game. You'd think we just went crazy from the first minute, but no, it took about 8 minutes or 7 or 8 minutes to kick the first goal in that game. And then after that, the floodgates absolutely opened. We just dominated from there on. I remember the first goal of the game, Chappie. We've talked about Chappie already, but just bombing it from 65 metres. I'm like, he's going to kick it all the way here.
Yeah.
I'll probably added another 5 metres to that. But he absolutely bombed it to the top of the goal square, or to the goal square, or the goal line. And Cam Mooney says, I'll have that. Thank you very much. Could have let it go through. 60-metre goal to get the crowd up and about. But no, Mooney takes the mark, goes back, kicks truly. A little bit of a fist pump there, and on we went. And after that, you've got we've got Jimmy Bartell kicking left foot snags around the corner in the first quarter. After I went for while I was having a quick toilet break, I heard the family screaming and yelling, "What's going on? Jimmy's just kicked a goal on his left." Nathan Ablett taking one-handers. It was incredible. That was an amazing game. Do I feel bad for Port Adelaide? No, I don't.
So I've got to add. I've got to add a couple of moments there that to me, Gary Ablett palming that kick out down, running on and kicking the goal.
Yes.
And then the one that stood out to me when I knew that they were fully cooked was Brad Otten's running down one of their speedy flankers on the wing. Like, it was a mismatch in terms of size. This tiny little, I can't remember if it was Pettigrew or maybe it was Pettigrew, running, taking bounces. And you could just see this lumbering giant, Brad Otten's, gaining and gaining and gaining. And he mows him down and wins a holding the ball. And I thought, they're done. They are cooked. If our ruckman is running down, they're sort of halfback, flank, wing, speedy type players, they've not a chance.
And let's not forget about Paul Chapman taking mark of the century over Warren Treadgrey. I don't know if you remember, but I think they won a prelim the week before, and he's bowing to the crowd and all this sort of stuff. And then in the grand final, a couple of Geelong supporters were just like, "Oh, you dickhead!" Hey! All that sort of stuff. Look, it's going to be. I'm looking forward to this one, mate. We've got a bit of. They're due a bit of payback. They got us at home this season, even though we nearly run over the top of them in the end. But yeah, that final from a few years ago, the 2021 qualifying final, I think we owe them a little bit of payback for that. No one's really given us a chance in this game. I feel like it's a 50-50 game for us. I do feel like I've said this all throughout the week. I think if whoever wins this game probably goes on and wins the whole thing. I feel like if we lose it, it's probably going to be hard for us to get our way into the grand final, let alone win it. But I think if Port can win this one, another home final in a prelim, I'd probably back them on a big stage on the last day in September. But it's all ahead of them, Jake. Let's hope there's another chapter written on Thursday night in this history between these two clubs. Hopefully it's another 100-point win for the Catters. We'll take it. All right, now, next story, Jake, the final story or the final segment for today. I want to talk about a player that we all love. Here he is, Bradley Close. Look at the man there in his long sleeve. How glorious does he look on a sunny day on a grand final against the Swannies, kicking goal after goal after goal, tapping it to Selwood for the Czech side banana. Jake, it's Brad Close's 100th game this weekend. Feels like he's been around at this club forever. I feel like he's been a 150-game player, but he's barely missed a beat since 2020. He played his. I'll take you back a little bit though. He played his 50th game against St Kilda, round 1, 2022. He had 14 disposals and a goal that game. Pretty standard, closely type stats really. His first game, his debut game, was against Fremantle, round 8, 2020, the grand final year of 2020. He had 14 disposals and 1 goal in that game as well. Typical Brad Close numbers. He's actually played 7 games against Port Adelaide with 4 wins and 3 losses, Jake. So let's hope it's 5 wins and 3 losses after Thursday night. Some thoughts on Brad Close, his career, what you'd like to see from him on the weekend. Show him a bit of love.
Yeah, I think there's been I've seen a bit of talk on Twitter at times this season about Brad Close. He's not in our best 23. He should be dropped. Got to drop him. He's totally out of form. Look, I think you can never underrate the fact that when different players come into the team, it can adjust the role and the production of others. Like Brad Close for a long time was, our best gut running, pressuring, clever in space type sort of half forward, wing, whatever sort of role you wanted to stick him in. And now he's got help. Now he's got Sean Manor. Now he's got Ollie Dempsey. Tyson Stengel's coming to the side. Brian Myers is in career best form. So Brad Close doesn't have to be, one of those lone, 2 or 3 hands anymore, doing what Geelong need in terms of the pressure. Now, I think it's fair to say he's been quieter, particularly the last 4 weeks. Just what's he key? He hasn't kicked a goal the last 4 weeks. He's only laid 4 tackles in 4 games. So that is quieter. But I will say he's averaging on the season a career high goals per game average. 1.09 is the highest of his career. So look, I think that he's exactly the type of player who might bob up and get back to his best. I mean, he's a seasoned campaigner. He's played a lot of finals for this Cats team. Something I thought was funny just when you were talking about the Port, thing, like where we lose those games to Port, the 2 qualifying finals. It's so weird, isn't it, that the narrative around Geelong is, the straight set Cats, and we lose qualifying finals to Port in 2020 and 2021, and we end up in a grand final in 2020 and a prelim in 2021. 2022, we go all the way to the flag. So it's funny, isn't it, how narratives stick around. But Brad Close, I love him. I think I often make this comparison, so sorry if Hoops Crew viewers and listeners are sick of me making it, but there's a little bit of the New England Patriots to Geelong in that Chris Scott, to me, loves to collect very smart role players. He loves to pick guys who will do their job and make smart decisions and clever decisions. And I think Brad Close is 100% one of those players. And we've got a bunch of them in our team. He's just so clever. He's just so smart. You very rarely see him take possession and get caught in possession. He's the master of the volleyball spike or the flick out to someone else. The Selwood goal in 2022's GF stands out as put that on a statue. The Brad Close ruck tap almost in the contest to Selwood. I love him. I think he's a quintessential Chris Scott player, a player that sometimes we go is out of form or what's he doing? And I think he knows exactly what he's doing. Probably had a quiet 4 games, but I think he can get back to his best 100%.
I love the fact that we're so obsessed as Cat supporters about Brad Close wearing the long sleeves. Every time we come into the early part of the season, it's a nice 27-degree day, round 1 or something like that, or it's a preseason game. Oh wait, hang on, where's Brad's sleeves? He's got the guns out. Hopefully, Brad wears the long sleeves for the rest of his career. It's a bit like Cam Guthrie and his hair. The sleeves and the hair, it makes the magic, Jake. It's what we need. I'm really happy for him. 100 games. He's not the most charismatic bloke at the club. It's fair to say he doesn't sort of give a lot of expression. But I do want to just mention something that really has stuck with me for the last couple of years since the grand final win against Sydney, and not so much in the game, but the Carji Greaves medal night, the best and fairest for the Cats a few days after that. And Joel Selwood and Britt, his partner, came up on stage and Joel was sort of saying his farewell to the people in the crowd and the members and all that, and made a special mention of Brad Close. And in his sort of farewell remarks, he was saying that he felt like the club was in really good hands because there's blokes like Brad Close that will never let the standards of this club drop. And he talked about a story where he was lifting weights, shifting some tin in pre-season or whatever, and Brad come up to him and said, "Hang on, mate, what's going on? You haven't got your normal weights on there. You're slacking off a little bit, are you?" And Joel's like, he was just pretty keen to sort of take it a little bit easy, and Brad was like giving him a hard time about doing that. So I think Brad's probably one of those ones we won't hear a lot about, and we won't see a lot doing heaps of media and so forth. And even when he does, you probably won't get a lot out of him. But I think he's the type of guy around the club that really will hopefully carry this, be that sort of connecting piece for years to come. That guy who came in 2020 and unfortunately was pushed out of the side for a certain Gary Ablett Jr. Fair enough, I suppose. But Closey was having a pretty good year that year, really, in his first year at the club. But yeah, got pushed out in time for finals and didn't play again after, I think, round 17. There was a shortened season that year because of COVID, but didn't play when the finals came around. But yeah, absolutely, he's been a mainstay in this side. Really has missed barely a game since the start of 2021. And it's just looking for. Hopefully, we'll find a bit of form again. He's, as you sort of mentioned, he's gone a little bit quiet with goals in recent weeks, but you'd think he's going to come back. He's just built for finals. He just does all those little 1%ers, Jack, that you talked about, the little taps, the little volleyball spikes. I think he's ready to go. I'm really looking forward to see what he can deliver on the big stage. But yeah, that Joel Selwood speech really sort of resonates to me. Is there any sort of other sort of memories you've got of Closey or things, any final thoughts you want to say ahead of his 100th on the weekend?
Look, it's sort of hard to pick him out. Like I feel like in a weird way, he's all about his business. Like he just goes about it like yes, he does sometimes do really exciting things. Actually, if you go to the game against the Crows this season, he won a really important chase down tackle late in that game where we're pressing to try and take the lead and the Crows are trying to exit their back 50, which they'd done really well all night. And I'm sure it was Brad Close who had just a vicious rundown tackle from behind to win a holding the ball decision and to put it back inside forward 50. I think it's more than just one thing in the sense that it's a trait that he has, is that I feel like Brad Close so often takes the right option. If he's got the ball, on the edge of 50 or inside 50 and he knows he can't score, he spots someone else up. And I love that about him. So yeah, I suppose that's the thing that sticks with me, is that I back him 9 times out of 10 to do the right thing in the right spot.
Good luck on the weekend, Brad. We know you're going to go well. Hopefully you kick another 4 goals or something like that. That'll be nice. Get the Cats over the line. That'll be fantastic. All right, Jake, with that out of the way, I'm going to finish the show with a bit of rapid fire questions for you, some trivia, and I want to see how you go. And we're going to stay with the Brad theme, if that's okay with you. Now, you don't know the questions. I haven't put these on the show notes deliberately, Jake. So hopefully you've done your research and you're ready to go. You haven't done any research because I'm throwing this at you cold. All right, here you go. And you get, if you can come up with more than one answer here, you get bonus points.
I'll be stunned.
All right, name. This is the Brad theme here. So name a current AFL player or coach named Brad.
Named Brad. Brad Ottens, is he still coaching?
He'll be a head coach. Sorry, I should have clarified.
Brad Close.
No, you can't say Brad Close. You can't say Brad Close.
I was going to say Brad Crouch, but he's not. I think he's coaching Albury or something at the moment.
Come on, there's an obvious coach. There's an obvious coach here, isn't there? He's kind of related to one of our coaches. Related to our coach.
Oh, Brad Scott, of course. Jeez, Jake. God, trivia show. Like I'm melting under the pressure.
On fire. I'll give you a hint.
It's not a good start.
Let me hint about some players. There's 2 Brads, 2 other Brads in the AFL, and they both play for St Kilda.
Oh, Brad Hill.
That's one.
Brad Hill, one of them.
Yes.
Oh, I can almost picture this guy, but I can't think of what his surname is. No, you'll have to give me the other one. Who is he? Who's the other Brad?
Brad Crouch.
Oh, it was Brad Crouch. Why did I think he was not playing anymore?
Yeah, no, I think he may. I don't know if he's called it quits, but yeah, he's coming to the end anyway. But he's still around. I would have thought there'd be more Brads than that, but not to be at this stage. All right, name a famous. Again, you get 1 point for every answer here, but name a famous actor or director named Brad.
I mean, let's take the low hanging fruit first. Brad Pitt. But and an underrated actor of his generation too. I think Brad Pitt. Sort of. Bridges of Madison County era Brad Pitt, just renowned for being the blonde bombshell, but he's really developed into a fine thespian. I'll also go with Brad Dourif. who gave one of
Yes.
the great performances, not only as the murder doll Chucky, but in Deadwood as Doc in Deadwood. He is absolutely terrific. And Grima Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings. So there you go. Brad Dourif.
I would have given you a bonus point if you had said Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. Very good.
There you go. There's one. Bradley Cooper. Does that count? Does a Bradley
I didn't have
count?
Bradley.
Brad Cooper?
Yes, that counts. I'll accept Bradley Cooper. I didn't have him on my list, but that's a good one. That's an obvious one.
There we go. Don't know if he's an Oscar winner yet, though, Bradley.
Nominated, I believe. Nominated.
Yeah,
a couple more for you. Brad Bird, director. I can't remember what movie it was, but it was an animated film, I think, a while back. And Brad Garrett, the big dopey brother from Everybody Loves Raymond. Apparently, that's his name, Brad Garrett. So I didn't know that. I didn't know what his name was. But yeah, anyway. And now, who was the former tennis player former tennis coach of Andre Agassi?
Oh my goodness!
Remember the
former
Brad
tennis
team?
coach. Yeah. Leighton Hewitt. No. Brad. Nah, I've got no idea actually. Yeah, Brad Hewitt, Brad Federer, Brad Djokovic. No, tennis isn't my area.
Oh, Brad Gilbert. That may or may not ring a bell, but anyway, Brad Gilbert is the former coach. If you watch a bit of, anyway, there you go. All right, 3 names that rhyme with Brad.
Chad.
That's one.
Is one. Chad Warner. 3 names that rhyme with Chad. Lad McConkey. Pretty sure he plays for Tennessee State College football team. There is a Lad McConkey. But that's not one of the winners. Answers. Names that rhyme with Brad. Am I just totally blanking on some obvious ones here, Ben? I've said Chad.
President of Russia.
Oh, Vlad. Oh, Vlad.
And
almost guaranteed.
We've got.
Have we ever had a Vlad play AFL footy?
I don't know.
Has there been a Vlad?
We need one.
I know we've had Ivan, big Ivan. We haven't had a big Vlad yet.
I would have also accepted Gad, which I've never heard anyone called Gad, but apparently that's the name. Thad, as in Thaddeus, and
Thaddeus,
Tad, which I believe there was someone's called Tad. I don't know. Anyway, challenge me on that one in the comments if you want. All right, 3. Here's a slightly easy one, and I'll allow you to come up with whatever you want here. 3 nicknames for Brad. Not necessarily Brad Close, but 3 nicknames. If you had a friend called Brad, what would you call him?
I mean, probably Chad to start off with, just because it rhymes. What do I call? I mean, no, it's not really a nickname. I always call Bradley Close, and because I called Chad Warner Chadley Warner. Brad. I mean, I'd call Pitty would be an obvious one from an Australian point of view. Pitty, Pitts. Yeah, I don't know if I'm that creative on the nickname front. Sambo would definitely have some creative nicknames for Brads. No, I'd have to go Pitt or Coops for Cooper.
I'm gonna fail you on that one, Jake. I would have accepted Braddles.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Brads. I didn't go with Brads on that, and then Brad Mondo. If you felt a little bit that way, that's a hard fail on that one.
Yeah, that's all right.
Here's one.
Nickname's not my forte.
I'm not very handy on the tools, Jake. But what is a Brad tool?
That's when Brad Close doesn't make the right decision going inside 50. Brad tool. A Brad tool.
Yes.
I've no idea what a Brad tool is.
I didn't either. I was just looking.
I'm not handy on tools, but I've.
No, well, apparently it's a pneumatic or battery-powered tool that drives small nails, just like a nail gun. So there you go.
Oh,
there you go, Brad tool.
Okay, now I Google it. I've seen it. Yeah, right.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. Here's one that I reckon you'll get. I think you'll get this one. It's the last question before we close out the show. Which player wore number 45 before Brad Close?
Cameron Ling.
Don't rush this. Don't rush. I was going to say don't rush. Is that your final answer?
Did I get it right?
Clearly, I'm asking you not to rush because I'm hinting that maybe you haven't got it right.
Oh, yeah, right. Because I know Aisling Maloney wears Cameron Ling's number. Why did I go 45? Why was that my instant answer? Because 44 was Corey Enright, Tom Stewart.
I should
Yeah, look,
preface. I should say that number 45 is to have played a senior game for the Cats. So Lingy retired at the end of 2011, and Brad Close took up the number when he started his career in 2020. So there was a 9-year break between Ling and Closey. There was a player in the middle there that there was probably other players that had the 45, but
there was a player that played some significant games. So an amount of games. You didn't just play one or two.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Look, I'm really actually I'm totally taking a stab in the dark at this one because Ling, but Ling was 45.
He was 45. Yes.
Okay, but he wasn't the player who took it over from. I actually have no idea. I'm can't have been Charlie Constable because he didn't play a significant amount of games for the Cats. Alan Christensen would have been well gone. Here's another name that just sprang to mind. He probably wasn't at 45.
No, he wasn't.
I've got no clue, Ben. You're gonna have to help me out on this one.
Well, it was the big rabbit, Ryan Abbott, from 2018 to 2019, played 5 games for the Cats. I can't remember where he went after Geelong.
Okay.
Did he play at another club? Yeah, Ryan Abbott.
I'll do a quick Google.
You do a quick Google. Another player. Now, we haven't had many players that have played games in the number 45. There's only one other that I could find on AFLtables.com, and that was Moddy, the big fella. Well, I don't know if he's big. Scott Morfitt, Drew's brother, in 1985 played 1 game for the Cats in number 45. But that's it. No one really rocks to number 45 like Lingy and Brad Close. Hopefully that number continues, and some other player after Brad Close in 7 or 8 years adopts the number and has a career. That'd be great to see. We've got a lot of players in the high 40s, haven't we? Blitzards 46 and Tom Stewart 44, and who's O'Connor wearing at the moment? Number the premiership. Is he 42 or Ted Closey 40?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, a lot of our players in the 40s. That's where it's at the moment. You want to be in the 40s.
That's where our age demographics at the Cats too, in the 40s.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. All right, that was a bit of fun, a bit of rapid fire fun, but we'll round the show out. So, Jake, well done, Jake. I reckon I gave you maybe I reckon I would have given you a score out of 10, maybe a 6 out of 10, Jake. You really let yourself down on the Brad Tool one, and the Brad nicknames. You failed miserably on the Brad nicknames. I thought you could have done a lot better there, but hopefully next time you'll do a little bit better there. We'll see who's got another milestone game. I think there might be a Gary Rowan milestone game not far away, possibly, unless I've all right. I think he might be the next week if he gets a game. But anyway, all right. Thank you, Jake, and thank you to everyone watching. We really appreciate, as I said earlier, appreciate your time, giving out part of your day to tune in and watch us talk crap about the footy club that we love so much, the Geelong Cats. Now, Jake, tell me again, when's the AFL preview video coming out for the qualifying final? When are you dropping that one?
Tonight, Wednesday, at some point. It depends when we record. Sometimes we get early, sometimes we get late, but it will be sometime before midnight tonight, Wednesday. So it'll be fresh there on Thursday morning for you to get stuck into. Driving to work, slaving away for the man. Put the tunes in, and off you go. You're set for your Thursday morning to get you up and about for the qualifying final, just in time to get all fired up. Jake, I'll be back Thursday night. I will be back on Thursday night for a bit of post-game live, a bit of PGL action. I'm looking forward to this. They've got the old gold little trim on this one. You know, it is a final. We've got to sort of jazz it up a little bit. Brad Close is on the cover there. A former Geelong Cat, Radigalia as well. We'll see how we go. I threw a bit of Reece Stanley love in there. I'm loving a bit of Reece Stanley at the moment, so I had to throw him on the cover as well. So hopefully the Cats have a good win, Jake. Want to thank you again. It's always a bit of fun chatting Cats on a Wednesday with you, Jake. We'll be back, hopefully, or at least I'll be back next Wednesday, and we'll do it all again. Thanks again, mate. Go Cats. Go Cats. Go Cats. See you, everyone.